Okay, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southborough Municipal Technology Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the Town of Southborough's website at southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting at southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of meetings of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. I just have to laugh. YouTube, yeah, that's technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website and YouTube an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So I'll call the meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. We don't have to do a roll call for calling meeting to order, correct?
It's a good habit to do it, just to have it as an audio record as well. So
okay, for an audio record. Okay. Verbal positive confirmations. Will Warren?
Yes, I'm here.
Larry Sandberg?
You're on mute, Larry.
Here.
Okay, and I'm also here as Matt Probst, and we have ex officio Tom Pham. Okay, let me check. I haven't heard back from Jeff to see if he's able to join us. Let's first go through, before we start the meeting, let's quickly go through approval of the minutes. And Larry, remind me, did you send out those minutes before?
Yes, I did. I think about 2 weeks ago.
Great. Thanks for doing that. Let me quickly pull them up.
If you can't find them, let me know.
I found them here. Perfect. And looks like Jeff will send me a text. He's not going to be able to. He will not be able to join us, unfortunately. All right. Let me share my screen here. Okay. Movements department head. Okay, looks good to me. Any comments from anybody else?
I move to approve the minutes as written.
I second that motion. I need a roll call vote to approve. Will?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
And I also approve yes. So our record shows that unanimous approval from the attendants. Thank you again, Larry, for putting those together. All right. I reached out to Fire Chief to see if he was not able to join us during our last meeting, and then during this meeting, I guess he's on vacation. He's not able to join us tonight. So I reached out to Director Tim Davis to join us from the Recreation Department. I'd like to spend the first part of our meeting chatting with him. Tim, are you on? There you go, you're unmuted.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Of course.
So as we discussed, sort of an invite, this is basically an informal MTC, Municipal Technology Committee. Its goals are to find ways of supporting and helping Tom in his role, as well as other town departments, and basically both ideate, if that's a word, and find ways of helping the town improve its services and improve its technology, mostly improve services through technology. And there's ideas that we can provide to help different departments solve their challenges, and that's a good thing. So we don't have any specific agenda. We just want to find out how things are going in the Recreation Department. I understand you recently rolled out a new, I think, the MyRec website. We'd love to check in and see how that's going, and then also anything else on the topic that you want to chat about. It could be even your computers, your phones, other issues, other printers, etc.
Yeah.
So,
I think Tom would agree. I think he spent a lot of time down here recently. We've updated substantially when it comes to the tech piece of it. Most recently my laptop. Personally, I think it was time to go. I inherited an old one, so we just updated my my work unit. He just updated my programmer's unit as well to a laptop system. She is fully remote due to COVID. So she is not in the office at all due to some medical stuff. So she was in need of something reliable. So we were able to hook her up with that. So that has been absolutely wonderful to get that. And that was in the last couple of days.
how was that, if you don't mind asking? Like, how was the experience? Is there a lot of customizations that were required?
Not really. I mean, everything transferred pretty seamlessly. I think I had, one or two access issues with permissions, and, Tom was able to remotely get in just from his desk at Town Hall, and take care of that within a couple of minutes. So it was pretty fluently. We set up blocks of time, so I anticipated the time out from my desk. So no, everything went great in that regard. And she hasn't been here, and she's been working off a personal computer. So he was able to just take her desktop unit and back to his office and do that on his own time. So there was no interruption at all on her end when it comes to that. So it was great. He's helping big time, having especially again with our remote worker here, forwarding all the calls straight to her cell phone. So that's helping just relieve, I think, the pressure here in the office. So that's able to do just to help us in that regard to get that rolling.
Out of my own, does every town employee have the ability of easily, of course, not only accessing remote voicemail, but easily setting up, enabling and disabling call forwarding to personal cell phones?
It can be set up fairly easily. There's numerous ways of doing it. So I'll plug a training that I'm going to be doing next week for staff on advanced features of the phone system. So, and that's going to be one of the things covered. Like
telling them how they can set up and disable the call forwarding. That's great.
Yeah, so it's been very helpful. I mean, we're not a traditional 5-day-a-week department, so to have that access has been very very beneficial for us. Recently today, actually, Tom helped us. We've been using our own Zoom account, kind of paid by personal card, just because of our remote employee, but also because of our programming over the last 6 to 8 months has looked very different, and we've needed to go to a Zoom model on a lot of stuff. So we've been doing that out of our own pockets, which we've been more than happy to do, as it is somewhat short.
Really?
but Tom
Yeah.
helped us get an extension of the town account today. So that will be put into use starting tomorrow as
Great.
one of our programs start tomorrow.
So up till now, you've funded basically a single personal account, is that right?
Right.
And you've been able to get all programs across. You haven't had sort of conflicts where you've need to have two meetings at the same time.
No, we were pretty mindful of our schedule when it came to that. Same with the library used it as well. They're using it for some of their virtual programs. So they took advantage of that, and we just scheduled it appropriately. So there was no interruptions with that. So I mean, the theme is, we've improved, I think, somewhat out of necessity, but some out of want of really getting up to speed with the tech piece of it here to address both the issues, I think, in-house due to COVID and just day-to-day operations and day-to-day business. Like I said, over the last probably 3 to 5 months, including a new printer, we were working off of a very large unit that was not insured with the town. It was very very Spartan. We were just waiting for something to happen, because then we would have been SOL and had to get a new one. So Tom helped us get a new unit with a scanner. We didn't have a scanner, anything like that. So we're finally in the right century, being able to conduct business from our office. So it's been really good. We're really, I think, at a place with the physical units that we really need to be. Online, like you mentioned, I want to say it was in February, we officially launched a new website for the department under the myrec.com umbrella. It's a well-known, throughout our state, our region, and really the country at this point, of a recreation service software. So we use it for all of our registration, for all programming, for credit card processing online. We've gone to I think last time we did it, we're about 90% online now with credit cards. Over the last, obviously, 6 to 8 months, we've been 100% with credit cards. But outside of registration, the software allows us to permit all of our facilities across the towns. The software allows us to control the lighting down in our sports fields through the integration that the technology has with their site.
Through integration with MyRec, so they can dynamically control the lighting of the fields based on the reservations.
Yep, right on a reservation that links directly to Musco. So we just input the schedules, and it syncs up with our Musco account. And if that doesn't work, there's an app for it, of course, and we can just turn the lights on from our phone, which I think the schools can do too. So
MyRec is a state site, you said? A state?
No, it's just heavily used in the state. That's kind of it's got its start in Massachusetts, Vermont, and then it's spread. So it's a private company, but it's just well known in the field of rec.
It's a SaaS offering. It's a SaaS offering that we as a town paid for to handle all recreation scheduling and so forth. Are they also the credit card processor themselves? Or
no, they have a backdoor processor. It's government portal and. Oh God, why can't I think of it? But no, they are not. They serve it out to another processor.
Okay. How much have we been able to leverage MyRec given COVID in terms of obviously reservations? Are we maybe claiming my ignorance here is I haven't been paying attention to how much fields and other facilities are even available for use during this time.
Yeah, so use of it during the shutdown, we kind of opened our door gladly to departments to utilize it. So specifically the library and Youth and Family Services used it heavily with us to get some of their programming out there that was online. So programming was the focus of it, the use of it. At the start of everything, where we are now, like mentioned, all of our field permits, all of our building permits as it relates to recreation goes directly through the site. So it's it's the database for it. It's our master calendar. That calendar is shared with Public Works as well. So Public Works logs in directly. They know who's going to be where at any given time on any given field on any given day.
Is there any sync up between MyRec and the Outlook basically Exchange online calendar?
I don't believe so off the top. It's something I can look into. They're updating constantly, so it may be, but as of right now, I don't believe so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be kind of cool. Maybe again, this is of your workflow. I don't know whether it would help or not, but be able to see right within Outlook the reservations and so forth.
Yeah, it would be kind of. I mean, we we got about 15, probably 15 to 20 on each day, so probably a little daunting every day. I show up to work and see a list of things, but no, I mean, so the MyRec, it has its an entire management portal, as you would imagine, of a host of other features that you wouldn't even know exists on the public side. So it's just very user friendly. So
and for each reservation, you can decide whether it's fully self-service, I guess, or some reservations they can go through an approval workflow, like you have to approve it before it's
right. Yeah, there's the ability. We don't use it just because of the control. The requests we get for fields are very extensive. They're kind of season encompassing, especially when you get into Little League in town and soccer, who are operating 6 days a week on 4 to 5 fields a day. So, but it does have that feature that if like you said, a self-serve feature, if you wanted to get the pavilion over at Fayetteville Park just for a picnic or something, there is that ability. But we kind of want to keep that control within the house, and more so we know what's going on per se, in case there's anything on the back end that they don't know.
So how does that work? Let's say, for example, that the pavilion at Fayetteville Park, does somebody still have to call the rec center, or can they submit the request online and then have you approve?
So they would still have to call to do the reservation, but they're able to go online. We've made the schedule for every facility public, so they can go on, toggle off whatever they want, and they'll be able to see what's available, what day at what time. And then as long as they create a household within or an organization within our account, it's less than a minute it takes if it's open to turn it around and get it out.
Great. How's your, by the way, I don't want to monopolize other people's time here. If people have other questions. I'm intrigued about your internet connection. And Tom, remind me, we have connection down, our fiber, down fibers goes down there now. Is that correct?
Yep.
Correct. Yep.
And for file services, I assume that we no longer have, I think we used to have a site-to-site VPN. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it would go over all of our file sharing, would go over that. Now it's more of a direct route.
Correct.
That's great. So have you noticed any difference in performance of accessing the file server?
No, I mean, hey, how you doing? Give me 1 second, guys, okay?
Sure.
So Tom, while he's away, so before the fiber ran, they had their own internet service.
Correct.
And now that's been turned down.
That's correct. So that's a savings of, I think, $110 a month. So, I mean, it's not going to save the budget, but it certainly will help. So,
just to clarify, what building are they in?
South Union. So the Art Center.
Okay.
The one that's on the complete other side of town.
Yes.
Beautiful new South Union building.
Exactly. To get back to, I apologize. To get back to the question, internet connection wise, it's been great.
No,
especially with the addition of a staff only and a public address for us to log in, personally here, but not have to give out passwords for the public. It's been great. So no interruptions. We haven't had an issue to date.
And are all the rec workers able to work as necessary remotely, or do you have any issues with technology when they?
No, it's been great, and the addition of getting Microsoft 365 has been wonderful for collaboration. We're really utilizing the OneDrive more than we are on our hard drives, just so that when we need to be remote, everything is there. So we've migrated a lot of our files to OneDrive just for ease of access. in case, we have to go full remote again. We've kind of been proactive with getting as much as we can on there. But now that we, again, have the 365 model, it's been great.
It's great. Tom, do we have is there a policy or recommendation we do to the employees about keeping working files either on a file server or on OneDrive to enable, obviously for the backups and for the simplicity if you need to swap machines?
There's not a policy, not a formal policy, but I've definitely made it clear to all employees as they roll out computers or bring them on board that if they save a file on their local hard drive and something happens, you're out of luck. I back up the server, we're backing up 365, but individual desktops, it's on their own. So
yeah, we don't do backups of individual machines. Is that correct?
Hey, Tom.
Correct. Yes.
With regards to Office 365 and OneDrive, can they use their personal computers to access that?
Yes. Yeah. So that's, there's a policy that we have to put in place, but, we need to work through some of those things. So
I think I noticed you playing with, and I haven't set this up on my own town account, but I should be, is the multi-factor auth. How is that testing going, Tom?
So as it stands today, all of your accounts are set up to have it enabled. Once you log in, you should be prompted to do it. And then anyone with admin rights to the 365 environment is multi-factor. I'm going to probably roll it out more and more as time goes on here.
Yeah, I've been using it and it seems to work just fine.
Yeah.
No issues compared to any other sites that I've got multi-factor authentication.
I too have been using it and found that it's very speedy to get back to you with the code, so no problem.
All right, further questions for Tim?
And I've been using it the other way because I've been using it within authentication app. So I'm not getting the code. So you and I have two different modes.
Which authentication app are you using?
Actually, I used to use Google Authenticator, but I've now moved it all into 1Password, which is my password manager.
Okay.
What additional questions do we have for Tim?
So I'm just sort of curious, and I didn't know anything about the MyRec thing, which sounds like a great step forward, but are there any other, it sounds a little silly asking the rec department, but are there any other major technical initiatives that you look down the road and say, this would be the next thing that I'd really like to do, or the next thing that's really important for us to do?
Not right now. I mean, honestly, I think one of the first things, so I've been here just over a year now, and one of the biggest things that I was somewhat tasked with coming in was to look at our website, and it was clear that we needed to update pretty drastically. So that was the big that was the big ticket at that point, and it went really well, and we had a really positive response. If I pull it up real quick. So yeah, we have almost 2,000 people already into our system, and especially given what we went through with, or currently going through with the pandemic and our limited programming, I think that's pretty good. We get new households almost daily, so we're just still investing in that. It's still a switch for a lot of people. We still have a lot of kinks with some families who are still using their logins from the old website and things of that nature. So we're still actively working very strongly with this site, but looking down the line right now, technology wise, there's nothing sticking out. When they integrated the lighting systems in town into the software, that was within the last month or two. I mean, that just brought the software to a new level. So we're really happy with it.
Which fields does that cover? All fields?
So yep, but right now all we have is down at Woodward. So we got the softball field, the soccer fields, and the basketball courts separately. So it controls all of those.
And 9/11 is not included, is that right?
Right, no lights down there. We have 2 more lighting projects to be in front of the planning board next month. So if all goes well, we'll have another set of lights down at Finn on the baseball fields, and then we'll have another set of lights down at the tennis courts at Neary. So and all would be, most likely Musco. We'll go out to bid, obviously, but the standard is usually Musco, and it'll all be integrated seamlessly, which would be great.
Gosh,
What is the time? What's the
20
timeline for?
when I was
go ahead.
coaching Little League, we didn't have lights anywhere in town.
What is the timeline for? I remember speaking with the previous rec director on the desire to get lights at the tennis courts at Neary. What is the timeline for that?
So
Obviously that'll help for things like the Southborough Summer Nights, which I think they've always been running off of generator and so forth. Right?
Yeah. So the packages were accepted today by the clerk. So we have our planning board hearing on the 19th of October, which is tomorrow. October's tomorrow already. And then we'll see where it goes from there. Ideally in a perfect world, we'll get approval the first meeting, but that probably won't happen. So, we'll take into account 2 to 3 meetings. And we're looking for, we'll put out the bid. The money's already allocated from the town. So as soon as we get it out to bid, the timeline we're looking is about 11 to 12 weeks for when we put it out to bid. So hopefully in the spring, hopefully before, spring season starts, if, worst case scenario, before summer ball starts. So early next year.
And all of these systems are planning to have like remote control.
Yep.
Over them?
Yeah, the standard for Musco Lights is that control link system, which, again, is controllable by your phone, but also the software that's integrated. So it should all be.
Does it have I assume that on the local switching system, does it have a mini cell, mobile phone to get its connectivity to the internet for the controls? Is that correct?
So ask that question again. I apologize.
Wondering how the lighting system gets connectivity to the internet. So I'm guessing that it's part of the lighting control system.
It's in the control box. It speaks directly to Musco. If we have an issue with one of our fuses or something, it alerts Musco. Musco calls us. So it's everything's connected.
Do we pay it as a service for that, I'm guessing?
Nope. No, it's part of the initial package of install. So there's no extra cost.
So is it a cellular connection, or what's the?
It must be some sort of cellular connection.
Some sort.
Middle of nowhere. Relatively speaking.
I can tell you it does not touch our network, so I have no concerns about it.
Yeah.
Until somebody hacks in through the field lights.
So we do have a fiber running right by Woodward. So if we ever need 10 gigabit to the baseball field, we can do it, right?
There you go.
Okay. Other questions for Tim?
Tim, do you in any way, shape, or form use fields from St. Mark's?
We don't use St. Mark's per se. We do use Fay when it comes to their gymnasiums. Since I've been here, at least, we haven't used the fields. I know that some of our user groups do, but they handle that separately on their end. But Fay School mainly, we use their facility. St. Mark's helps us kind of in a flip way. We sometimes rent equipment from them, like the lacrosse goals at Lundblad right now are St. Mark's, things like that. So they help us kind of in the back doorway as of right now. But offers always on the table usually.
They're not really listed in the list of fields, are they?
No, we don't really necessarily publicize it just because there's so many steps to get to that point. We don't really have, control over it. We don't have access to their schedule. We don't know what's out there on a day-to-day. So we usually go through their operations office for that.
Well, one reason I'm asking is there's going to be an ADA self-assessment that's done, and I don't know if if we would have to go and assess the Fay School as part of that if we are indeed having activities there.
Gotcha. No, I'm actually in the midst of helping them with that, so I'll bring up that question. That's a good question.
Who are you working with?
Sam over at Fay and Lori Carlson at St. Mark's.
And this is to do what?
Fay is traditionally for basketball, for men's league basketball, adult league basketball. We use their gym. They do, offer up access to other facilities, and we had plans to do it, and then everything shut down. And then Lori, again, we haven't used their fields to date, but we kind of talk weekly and see what's going on and stay in touch. But I apologize, actually, for Heritage Day and things of that nature, we use the main field across from the library. So, we use that field a lot.
Okay, thank you.
So I know some of our meetings touch on 5G and the issues of the 5G cell towers in town, or the future of what it might look like, etc. I assume, to your knowledge, Tim, you've never been approached about in 5G towers and some of these high lighting towers, like at Woodward.
Not to date.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I know that on Acre Bridge Road, is there any discussions about lighting at 9/11?
No, it's DCR property and they're very against it. So I wouldn't,
okay.
It would make sense. I mean, it's a turf field. It'd make perfect sense to put them there, but being DCR land, that was a big no-no from what I've read and I've heard from talking to people. So most likely it won't be there.
Okay. All right. Any final questions for Tim?
No.
Is there anything we can do to help, or any of your significant challenges? I think Larry already asked the question about technological initiatives, but any final thoughts or questions that things we might be able to help out with?
Not really. I mean, like I kind of mentioned starting off, Tom's been down here a lot and he's addressed kind of what we needed immediately to keep operating in these interesting times. So, our needs are met, and he's always been accessible whenever we need something. So it's been great. So right now we're good. We're smooth sailing.
Great. Well, thank you for your time tonight. I greatly appreciate it. And feel free to reach out. Obviously, you can always continue working through Tom, but feel free to reach out directly if you have any additional comments. So
absolutely, I appreciate it. It's good to put faces to names. So
yeah, great. Okay, thanks a lot.
All right,
Tim.
have a good night, guys.
All right, night. Okay, proceed on the agenda. COVID-19 risk mitigation via technology. Sounds like what we just heard there, we're able to unify our Zoom accounts. What is the current?
So just both Rec and Youth and Family actually reached out on the same day. They had been each kind of paying and eating the tax, because they thought it was going to be a short period. And I had set up the town accounts through invoicing with tax exempt and whatnot. So it was a fairly easy thing to just add an additional host for each department to use to the master account. So it's not, I was very clear to them that I'm not planning to use those for meetings or anything like that, in part because of limitations on the number of meetings that we can broadcast to YouTube at one time. I've seen conflicting reports on that, whether it's 2 or 3. I know for a fact we can do 2. So I don't want to schedule a third meeting anyway at the same time. I haven't had that kind of need at this time. So, but as you heard, Rec will share their account with library when they're not using it. Youth and Family, I think, would share theirs if they aren't using it, but they're doing a lot of teletherapy right now, so I think their account is pretty tied up. So
the town currently then has 4 accounts that are consolidated. Is that correct?
We have 4 hosts. The 2 for remote meetings that are webinar. The other 2 are just basic Zoom accounts. But
I'm sorry, who uses the third one? I missed that.
So it's Youth and Family has one, and Recreation has one.
And Tom, none of these go over the town network, do they?
These are all as a service. So
yeah. So I mean,
people join the local.
They use the town network to the extent that if you're in, like Tim was just in the recreation office, so it's going through the town network in that regard. It's going through the internet there, but you guys are not coming into the town network on your connection right now. So
with regards to the Zoom meetings, this has been extremely convenient for me because I don't drive. To be able to attend meetings via this approach. Anybody get any indication if this is going to continue once the current crisis ends?
As I've said in the past, if I look at my crystal ball, it's going to be that, if you're doing remote participation at all, it's going to be in some kind of visual format, as opposed to just a conference call, if possible. I think that there is some push to get back to some in-person meetings. We've had some committees that meet in parking lots because they want to do in person and they don't want to use the technology. I know that the selectmen have indicated a desire to have all meetings broadcast in some sort, whether it's over Southborough Access or through Zoom. So I think that some component of Zoom or whatever the flavor may be down the road will remain. Whether we can continue to have full meetings remotely, that's up to the state legislature. And I don't think they're even remotely close to tackling that question until any kind of vaccine comes out. So, I would say this fiscal year, we're probably mostly remote, but I know speaking for myself, it's very convenient to have these committee meetings on Zoom because I can do them from home. I don't have to stay down late at night. But at the same time, I know that there are a lot of people that are getting Zoomed out. They really want to get back to in-person activities. So we'll see what the future brings for us.
Is there, remind me, were you looking at, I can't remember whether we discussed this or not, Tom, but were you looking into Zoom Rooms features?
Yeah, not Zoom Rooms per se, but rather what it would take to hardwire the hearing room at Town Hall and the big meeting room at Corderville Hall for, plug and play, fixed mount cameras. Well, they're PTZ cameras, but they'd be fixed there with appropriate speakers and microphones to cover the room. And then a slightly more advanced system for the public safety building, given that that's also the EOC. So that one would have more of a setup for actual video conference calls during an emergency. But so I have pricing back on that. That is kind of a quote unquote shovel ready project. If grant funding were to open up for setting rooms up for that, then we have quotes in hand that we can negotiate back and forth or go to another vendor to see what they would expect. But we have something as a baseline.
How does the town fund? Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
What I was going to say is that I know Mark Purple is looking into any type of grant sources to pay for this ADA self-assessment.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like there's also money floating around to improve the community and things like that, different grants. Yep. Does Mark know about your shovel-ready projects?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, he knows about those. And, we had gotten the notification about the community compact grants for this year. Unfortunately, with those, the way they're set up, and it's for some equity basically from the state, is if you are awarded a grant one year, you have to take the next year off from applying. And that's the program that we did the fiber through last year. So we're kind of in an off year for that, but I'm continuing to look to see if there's any other grant opportunities out there. I do a search at least once a week for video conferencing grant opportunities. So
now these Zoom rooms, would they connect to the town network, or would they connect directly to a provider like Verizon?
No, it would be over the town network. over the same internet connection. So, you know, it basically, the way they would be set up is that you would go to a room and yeah, it's not actually a Zoom room, Matt. So that's not what we're looking at. We're not looking at the scheduling and the touch panel and things like that. What I'm looking at is pretty much a USB port on the wall that you plug your laptop into, and it's essentially, the computer thinks it's a USB camera and microphone system. And the reason I wouldn't do Zoom rooms is just to not tie to a specific provider. You know, it's a platform agnostic solution really to go with this kind of hardwired USB system.
Well, I mean, the reason I ask is, would it be feasible for Sam to live broadcast over their network, over the, access channels, a meeting that's being done by Zoom?
Yeah, so that was actually a conversation I had with the contractor that came out to, actually it was a field engineer. And they have done several installations that are in concert with the local access. So, you know, they might use the same cameras, they use the same interface. So if we have that desire, that's something that can be done, that they could just grab the feed from whatever's coming from the camera. You know, beyond that, I haven't had discussions with Southborough Access about, you know, how else they might tie into our live broadcasts.
When you say grab a feed off of a camera, the camera will actually encode the feed into IP, or?
I don't know all the technicals on it, but I
Okay.
believe that would just be another interface coming off of it. It would be like a split video coming, as my limited understanding of it. I hasn't gotten to that point of having the really technical discussions about how that would work. But and in all reality, I would probably just put the two engineers together to make sure that they were comfortable with the solution.
Well, if it'd be okay, I'd like to digress into the charter contract for a moment.
So I will say that that's not something that's on the agenda, and I don't know if it's really purview here. So
Okay.
that's up to the chair, you know, to
Let's-
determine.
If it's related, let me see here.
So I mean, the big thing to
Yeah.
say is that, you know, those video conferencing capabilities they're not in place today anyway. So there's no immediate push to have the discussion about how it would be tied into Southborough Access.
Well, okay. I mean, if we're not going to discuss the charter contract right now, then that's fine. But there's this whole issue about live feeds, and I guess my interest would be that it seems like there might be possibilities to use the existing infrastructure that's being put in. And one reason for doing that is that at least Charter and maybe Verizon are now have this itch to charge back a fair market value of anything they do in terms of feeds or whatever. And so, that decreases the amount of money that Sam would be receiving. But we can discuss that another time.
We don't have a related committee or that on our agenda, but we do have, of course, have technology status of the town itself, town administration, so. But yeah, I mean, we should be exploring, as we've all discussed, additional ways of using the town network, leveraging the town network that the town has invested in for carrying feeds, as opposed to offloading it onto carriers or having the carriers to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at this point, in a sense, we sort of have infinite bandwidth. I mean, we can light up fibers, we can light up wavelengths, and yeah, there's an initial cost. But it seems to me that that if we actually needed that bandwidth, it would get paid back pretty quickly compared to using carriers.
Between buildings. I
Yeah.
just want to stress between buildings. You know, it's not we have infinite bandwidth out to the world to actually broadcast with. So
That's true.
so.
But I mean, well, that's the other question is, is there a connection between the town network and Sam's site at Trier?
Currently, there is not.
Okay.
They may have a link somehow, but it's not. It does not touch the town network at all.
And the schools do not touch the town network?
No.
Not yet. I think we discussed this possibly future expansion to, I mean, right now, I think every school has its own network dedicated internet connection and so forth. I think in previous meeting with Vandrew, we discussed that. Something to explore potential cost savings rather than having every school, especially if we're having a fiber runs right by Woodward. You know,
Are there any telecommunications tariff issues? I know back in the good old days of AT&T and all that if you had a company that had two buildings right next to each other that had to go across the road, you were kind of screwed because you needed all kinds of approvals in order to do that, and I think you had to pay AT&T for the purpose of doing it. I don't know if that's still the case. I don't know if that's been all significantly changed now.
I don't believe that we have to worry about that with the town network because we actually utilize the public safety portion of the poles. So,
really?
within town there is a public safety zone, if you will, on the poles. So,
and
so
we don't pay for that space on the poles.
Nope.
And the public safety would allow us to connect to schools without worrying about tariff issues.
We would have to clear it, but I don't foresee an issue with it.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on the COVID-19?
No, I
No.
I was looking at that, and I can't think of anything else that pertains to that really at this point.
Okay. Thanks.
Has your new employee taken a COVID-19 test?
He is. He's been a town employee anyway, and he works in schools. So I haven't asked that question, and
That's new information. You actually have a new employee now.
so I can go over that. I guess it's a good segue into the next
School administration. Yeah.
So yes, I have. So the budget is for 19 and a half hours per week. Right now, we have Chris McGinn, who came from the library. He was doing, he was manning the desks there, but he was also doing their kind of technology work. He was doing the computer replacements and things like that. So he is actually doing 8 hours a week on average for me, just kind of onboarded this week. He will primarily be doing night and weekend type stuff, so server maintenance and projects of that sort, and then responding to tickets overnight if needed. And the hope was so we've had some struggles with recruiting. We had a couple good candidates, and for various reasons it didn't work out. So we have just reposted the job for. We've posted it as 11 and a half to 19 and a half hours. I believe the desire that I've heard is to keep it to the 19 and a half hour budget, more for the going forward issue. So, if we find someone that is fine with I'm going to call it 12 hours a week, then great. If we find someone that really is wanting the 19 hours, then I will be going back to the selectmen and having discussion and figuring out how we move forward. But right now, I have the 8 hours a week as at least an initial, gives me some relief. It's better than nothing. So, okay.
That's great. I assume that there wouldn't be any desire or ability to split between multiple people if you had that. So
at this point, I don't think I want to split even further. I don't want to
Yeah,
have three,
enough overhead.
three people at 8 hours a week, because that just is more management and more keeping track of the moving parts, I think. So I think the two people will make a good team, and at least for right now. And that kind of segues into some of the other things that I've been working on. Matt, that I've been working on the staffing survey. I sent Matt a draft today of kind of my results that I got back. So once I get some feedback on that, I'll submit it to the entire committee. But basically, going forward, I do want to do a full staffing evaluation, optimal levels of staffing for the department, and kind of come up with a plan, and present that to selectmen and advisory, and saying, look, this is where we feel that the technology department needs to be for staffing. And here's how we might get there. And that how we get there may be, I put it to the selectmen, it may be a 10, 15-year project to get to, the target. I hope not. I hope it doesn't take that long to reach our goals for now,
Yeah,
because it's going to change in that amount of time. But we need some kind of goals to put in front of everyone, and some kind of path.
Yeah, and for Will and Larry's benefit here, basically, Tom put together a survey to create sort of a benchmark of neighboring towns, of find out how, what does their IT look like, how many servers, how many desktops, how big is the town, and what services they offer, and then how many employees they have. So basically trying to benchmark Southborough versus neighboring towns in terms of IT staffing, based on the amount of infrastructure and equipment and services that IT staffing have to run, to be basically show, and I haven't looked at even the draft results yet, but basically hopefully be able to justify that, or clearly show how where Southborough lies, which is most likely way understaffed.
So and I put in the summary, it's that's only one piece, is the benchmarking to other communities. The other piece is the discipline piece. What disciplines do we need to cover with our technology staff, or contractors? We need to have certain levels of knowledge covered in one way or the other. So look for that to be coming, and we'll probably have some in-depth conversations around that whole topic
Next
at
meeting,
some point.
probably.
So
One question would just be that with respect to what these other towns do, I mean, the towns around us most of them are larger than we are.
yeah. So
I think all of them are, right?
So that's the other thing I want to clarify. I did do the communities that are used in our quote unquote market basket analysis for salary evaluations. But I also looked at communities that were a similar population, similar average household income, average home value. So I tried to get communities that were, again, similar. So one of the respondents was Framingham. And I basically took them from the results and just threw them out. It was great information to have, but their data on all categories was just off the charts. So it just threw an anomaly into the averages and things like that. So it's good information to have, but it didn't work for the analysis.
Now, is this a survey that you put together?
What's that?
Is this a survey that you put together?
Yes. Yeah. And then I just sent it out to about 20 towns, and about 9 of them responded. So I may ask for Mark Carpel's help to get the administrators of those other communities to respond to me. But at least a starting point that we have.
I assume you offered them the resultant data as an incentive.
Actually, one community did actually ask for it. So once I have it compiled, I will certainly send it out to all of them.
Tom,
Yep.
with respect to how we stand with other communities, I would imagine some places large as Framingham does a lot more things in-house than we do. I mean, we have we use a lot of different vendors, whereas they might bring some things in-house that we don't have. Is that true?
That I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I will tell you that we don't use that many vendors for technology right now. That's it is a lot in-house. So
Okay, that's interesting. But then are they just basically like Southborough except a lot larger?
again, I can't speak to that without really talking directly to them and asking those questions directly.
Just have you heard of anything where these 20 towns that they have some whiz bang systems that we do not have, or
No.
pretty much everybody's pretty much the same?
Yeah, I would say you have your assessors that have probably one of probably two, maybe three systems that they use. Financial packages, there might be 4 or 5 that are out there, but no one's using their homegrown systems really, except for maybe a small tracking database or something. But
Okay.
that's my general sense. Okay.
Do we have, the survey you're sending, are you sending it to the IT administrators or are you sending it to the town administrators?
So if I was able to find contact for the IT department, I sent it to that person. Otherwise, I sent it to the administrator. So to the town administrator. Okay, so some towns, you'll find that their websites are lacking. I don't know if the technology staff wants to hide or what the deal is, but yeah, some of them, I don't find it very readily.
It'd be interesting to form, I shouldn't say alliance or groups or something like that, but basically communications networks like with our peer towns, so
Yep.
we can share knowledge, especially around either good vendors, bad vendors,
Yeah,
ideas about how to improve, and so forth.
I've been involved in a couple of groups like that, and they have some energy for a little while and then they fizzle out. So generally speaking, a new product or new vendor, I'll ask for references of other communities within Massachusetts that use them, so that I specifically ask for Massachusetts because we are unique in some ways. So
Did you notice that Mr. Stivers put a chat in?
Yep.
Yes, yeah, it mentions that nuclear budgeting software has the
Yep.
ability of showing particular items compared with a selection of other towns. That's awesome.
So the part of the challenge with that, and that's where I got those comparable towns, and Matt, you'll see, and everyone else will see it when I get the data to everyone, is I used 2018 budget, fiscal 18 budget numbers, overall town budget. And that's because if you pay for the ClearGov solution, you get more current information showing. But 2018 was kind of a universal benchmark that I could use. So, but the challenge is that each town, again, is organized a little bit differently, right? So I can't even just say, okay, what's the technology budget? So that's why I said overall budget for that, just to have a benchmark. Okay. Go ahead, sorry.
It might be better if Sam didn't listen to this, but in the spirit of I'm a consultant and I'm here to help, has there been any movement for, groups of towns to join together and create like a single IT department that services all of their needs?
So I don't know that there has been much talk about that. I know there hasn't been with Southborough, at least in my 4 years. There was some possibility of doing a job share for EDC when that position was being filled, and that led to some complications over who picked up the benefits, who was responsible for the post-employment benefits. So there's definitely things to be worked out there. I've seen it more often that the schools and towns are combined. The school and town committees are combined, and that's definitely something that that's a model that I think is going to have some value to look at when we're looking at the staffing assessment. But regionalized IT, I think it gets a little difficult because, as much as I'm kind of reporting to, different departments and the Board of Selectmen and whatnot, now think about the pull between different boards of selectmen and, different town managers. And I think it can be, I can see it having benefits, but I can also see a lot of obstacles to it. So, take that for what it is, and it's something that we can certainly look at.
Well, I think when you talk about, the schools, obviously with respect to the high school, we have a problem, sharing with Northborough in terms of IT resources. Also, I would not, to tell you the truth, I would not necessarily propose this or say it's a good idea. The only problem I see here is that, thinking back to my consulting days, McKinsey would come in and claim that they're going to be able to save the state $1 billion a year if we just take everybody out of every town and put them all into one place. So I would say let's just not encourage that.
Yeah, no, I think it leads to a lot of challenges, especially when you run into events like a regionalized disaster, like before I arrived, when there was microbursts that came through. How does the IT department then prioritize between Southborough and Northborough and Framingham? So there's just a lot of challenges that would come up with that. So I don't think that would be something that I would necessarily push to propose in the staffing models. But
it's good to think about it and be able to,
Yeah.
I mean, if the questions are asked, because it's not just us talking about it. We know we've heard as drastic as people saying, why does Southborough need its own fire department or police department? It's so small. Why don't we just join some others? And clearly there's like response time issues and clear justification. So there are citizens who will be asking, why don't we join up, or why don't we just use more services, et cetera?
Yeah, and in some cases, really, that would be going back to 4 years ago. And I'm not trying to sit here and toot my own horn, but every report I've heard from every department is that things are so much better with IT sitting in town. So
yeah, much more customized service. Yeah.
So again, it's something certainly to keep an eye on, and if there were the right partner to show up that wanted to dance and said, we have this person and this is how we want it, but we want one person to oversee the strategy. That's something to look at. But and as far as what I was saying about the schools, it wouldn't be like a true merger. It'd be they have this skill set that we could basically pay for X number of hours per year to use their person instead of hiring another person to do that. That's all. So,
Well, I think the fact that we're talking about government is probably a good thing, because that protects us from somebody coming in and claiming that they're going to, by consolidating, they're going to save all kinds of money and improve service and all of that stuff. And I've seen a lot of places where that turned into a disaster. So,
Yeah. So, and that's where your experience will certainly come in handy, and your voice will be needed. So, okay.
Yeah, I would, anybody who came in with any type of proposal like that, I would want to go and ask them a zillion questions. Not just from a security standpoint, but also from service and the complexities and all of that. I would be very skeptical.
Yep.
So, Will, as an obligatory response, as a McKinsey employee, I would say McKinsey would never do that.
Well, I know that your branch of McKinsey would never do that, but I've met the the starch collar guys, and I've seen them do horrible, terrible things at a place like AIG, for instance. So, I appreciate that. There are many different portions of McKinsey now. But I would just say that there are some that I've run into that don't seem to be very
It all
scrupulous.
depends what they're optimizing for, right? And the CEO or whoever, as asking them to come in and solve that particular problem, they are laser focused on solving that problem. That's whatever costs. Yeah.
So, so if I can, I'd like to move on to some of the other things that I've been working on.
Please.
Phishing simulations. I know I sent you guys a test one. I did sign up to do that for all employees. Okay, I stopped it at the employees for this year at least, and I'm not doing boards and committees for the most part at this time, primarily due to the level of access. So it's kind of a risk reward. As committee members, you have access to email and basically email only. And while yes, there's damage that can be done if you lose control of your email account, it's not the same as if we lose control over one of our workstations. So I started my first campaign today. I will be sending out kind of a summary of the results in the coming days, but I do have that in place.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Yeah. And I assume we're tracking obviously the results so that over time, as we do subsequent campaigns, we can show improvements, especially after one thing that, we still need to get on the calendar. We can schedule it outside of this call, but I would love to do the security hygiene session for employees. Let's just get on the calendar and do that.
So this system actually comes with little, for the most part, they're kind of cartoony training videos, but they actually take real world situations that happened, and they change the names for to protect those involved, and they kind of go through it, and then you have a little quiz at the end of it. So there's a training component too, that if someone actually clicks the link, they're automatically enrolled in a training course that I select for them. They're usually 2 to 5 minutes of a course, so it's not like they're sitting there for hours. So my big push is that this is not a punitive type campaign.
Do they give it progressively longer? So the more links you click on, the longer the training gets?
No, if I start seeing a trend, then I have to have a sit down with someone. But my big thing is that this is not to be punitive. This is training. This is investment in our overall cyber posture. One of the campaign, I could set up that there's up to 5 different templates that go out randomly to the group, and one of the campaigns kind of hit close to home for one department today, and they asked me to not use that one for fear of people being mistrustful of real information coming out soon. And I said, actually, that's part of the plan. Part of this is
what we need.
I can't just keep sending out your email password has been compromised, and I proved that today. Just today alone, that had about a 10% fail rate as opposed to 50% on the people that got the one that was a little closer to home. So my message is that I'm sorry that it is causing you a little bit more headache now, but ultimately, come tax time, the people that are out there trying to do phishing attacks, they're going to do W-2 attacks, W-2 messages. So that's what I'm going to train on at some point. Is it going to cause headaches? Yes, but my goal ultimately is to have people take the time, look at the sender information, look at the wording, and I hope to do these recaps after that say this is how we did overall. I'll come up with a grade, whether it's A, B, C, whatever, and say these are the things you should be looking at. These were the hints in these particular exercises that you should have picked up on, and if you didn't, please learn from this. So that's what I'm focusing on, is really the training aspect. I don't want to point fingers and say, you messed up, you clicked on this. But I have had a lot of people actually send me an email today saying, is this legitimate? And to which I respond, it was actually a phishing simulation, and you did the quote unquote right thing by notifying me. So, kind of that positive reinforcement that, thank you for for doing it.
Have you tried any, a few ideas there. Have
Yep.
you tried any spear phishing attempts from other domains? Meaning,
So all of these actually come from other domains. Like they actually have a different domain name on them. One of them, I actually changed the signature name in the body of the email to be different than the sender name. So again, things like that. There are different templates to use. There's credential gathering ones. There's just plain old phishing. There's the one that I did today was.
Yeah, I'm thinking like a spear phishing one where it's targeted, where you easily register for like $10, a website that looks very close to southboroughma.com, but with like one letter misspelled, and then send it as if it's like a from address of a
Yeah, I haven't done that one yet. But again, we're at the early stages of this, and hopefully we'll get to the.
Actually,
yeah, we can.
It'd also be interesting. I was just thinking about the way they do spam calls on phones now, where they use area codes that are your area code, and sometimes even prefixes that are your prefixes. So you say, got to be somebody I know. It would be interesting if you were to send out emails like from Tom LaFlemme or T LaFlemme at southboroughma.ru. And see if, because I pick up on the top level domains all the time, and you'd be amazed how many just say
exactly one little letter off, but send it from Mark Purple asking for a financial document or something like that, right?
Purple at southboroughma.ru.
So that's the long-term goal, is to be training on this, and really these campaigns are the door in to training. So it's that initial thing. So
one thing that many companies do, and I don't know whether we've done it or not, I'm guessing we haven't, is adding something to the subject line of all emails that are sent from outside of the domain.
Yep. You should see on all your emails external at the top of it.
Yeah,
okay, so it is tagged already. That's great.
And funny story about that, I actually had a longer disclaimer on there initially, but I had too many complaints from people that they do the preview of their message and all they saw was the disclaimer. And then I still had someone complain about the external disclaimer. I said, no, it's got to be there. It's best practice at this point. So
is that part of the subject line or body?
The body. It's the first line of the body.
So I might consider adding an EXT to the subject line.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. That's more effective because it pops up.
We do that, so we can. Without even opening it up.
Good suggestion.
Hey, Tom.
Yep.
The voting machines that are used here, I assume they're run by the town and they're not connected to any networks, are they?
You would have to ask the clerk on that, but for the specifics, I believe that they connect to the town network to get an update, but that's it. I believe they are actually, that might be only the poll pads. So I will retract that and say I would check with the town clerk on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. But he is very much up on the security aspect of it. Being a former FBI agent, he's very well aware of the issues surrounding elections. So
I thought he had come out of the Navy, so he's former FBI. Wow.
Yeah. So okay. A couple other things I've done. Well, next one kind of tails. I've actually put together a training catalog basically for employees. I'm going to be offering trainings, hopefully 1 or 2 a month. I've asked Matt to help me with one of them. He had expressed interest in data security and I don't want to say personal hygiene, but internet hygiene.
Security hygiene, yeah.
So we'll be doing one of those. I did one on managing the website for employees. I'll be doing, as I mentioned earlier, one on the phone systems. So there's a pretty good list going on the town site on my department page. And basically, I had sent out a survey again to employees saying, how likely are you to attend one of these trainings? And just about all of them had a pretty good, strongly likely to attend. So I put them all out there. And what I'm doing is I'm actually doing them as webinars and recording the webinars, so they're available on demand as well. So that's and actually for the phone system one, I have the phone vendor. Our rep is willing to join in, so he'll be an expert voice if I can't answer a question or am quite honestly answering it incorrectly. He can jump in and get the right information out there. So
for the phones, we have like a little quick reference card that we
there's
laminate
some reference
next to the
cards
phones.
out there that I've distributed before, so I'll certainly send that back out again. So right now I'm focusing on the staff, again, for the issue of security for the most part. Okay. A couple changes that I've made from the security aspect. For a while, we've had 3 SSIDs on our wireless network. We've had the staff, internal, staff, internet only, and the public Wi-Fi. The staff internet only had always been intended for either personal devices or phones and Apple Watches and things like that don't need to have access to the network. Well, I've taken the next step now, and I'm actually disabling the ability for some of those devices to connect to the staff internal network. So I've been monitoring and blocking the MAC address for devices that aren't town issued.
So you're doing a whitelist approach on MAC addresses.
So right now it's more of a blacklist approach. Eventually I will turn it into the whitelist approach. I just need to gather that full list and populate it. But really it came down to there were Internet of Things devices that were on the internal network. And, I don't feel comfortable with that. And I don't think any of you would either. So
what were the 3 SSIDs? Staff internet only?
There's a staff internal, a staff internet only, and public Wi-Fi. And really the difference between the staff internet only and the public Wi-Fi is public is, you sign in and agree to terms and your session lasts up to 8 hours. Whereas the staff internet only is, a password that they put in. So it's, they can actually save it.
So you're basically shunting all of that other traffic now onto the staff internet only.
Right. It goes out the same actual internet connection, but it doesn't, the firewall.
Can't talk to our file servers.
Right.
So all of our IoT devices are on the staff internet only.
Yeah. So I've also set up our firewall to alert me anytime someone logs in with admin credentials, anyone makes any changes to the firewall settings, and also anytime that someone fails their authentication on the VPN connection. Okay, so I'll be sitting here and an email will pop up and I'm able to reach out to a user and say, hey, was that actually you that just tried to log in? It's a manual process right now, but it's at least some visibility into if we start getting, people trying to authenticate against the VPN.
Great. One thing, I keep on bringing it up, but this is a longer term goal for the town. We really should work towards single sign-on for all services with multi-factor. So multi-factor, second factor is a really big annoyance, but if all services are using the same single sign-on, federated through OAuth or SAML, then it's not a significant issue because you authenticate once and these other services can inherit from it.
So it's something that I continue to evaluate, but
Great.
It's going to be a slow process. Okay. Tim mentioned Office 365. We're using, or I'm starting to explore some more of the offerings that we have as employees through the licensing that employees are having access to, including encrypted emails through the Microsoft system. So it'll send out, the email, and you have to authenticate before you can actually read it. Microsoft Bookings, it's a kind of new offering for them. I've actually set it up for a couple things where, I can put out computer replacement, and that is a 90-minute appointment, and it's only available on these days between these hours. And then there's online general consultation, which is half an hour. So I can just send that link to people, and they can actually book things right on my calendar. If I have an appointment that runs from 11 to 1:30, well, that's automatically taken out. So it makes that piece of scheduling a little bit easier.
I'm sure there are probably other departments that could also benefit from that, right?
Yeah, and I'm kind of broaching that a little bit. I'm going to be putting out more information on it, especially as we get into reopening. And right now we're in by appointment only, and we may be there for a long time by appointment only. So if we make it easier for someone to say, I want to come in and do a plan review. Well, plan review, the department says, is half an hour. Okay, well, you can book that time. So, it doesn't have a lot of features to it, but it's definitely something that's there. It's integrated to your Outlook calendar.
And the people making the requests don't have to be a member of the same
you can
Outlook
set it
server?
up either way. So, I've even started to doing it when a vendor says, can I get some time on your calendar? Well, here, go to this link and find a time that works.
Yeah. Nice.
I know that some people find that very intrusive for people to just book something on your calendar, but again, it's.
But I assume you, as the calendar holder, you can select like what time you would make available for bookings. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
So, and like I said, if I have a random appointment on a Thursday afternoon, someone can't book time on that. So, so again, it's something that's out there that I found it, and
already paying for it.
Right. So
let's
just putting
explore using it.
putting
Yeah.
up there. Similarly, we have access to Teams, so I'm going to start trying to encourage departments to use Teams more often for their internal file shares and communications. I think Youth and Family indicated that they're using it a lot for for internal communications. And a lot of this stuff, unfortunately, we can't roll out to boards committees because of open meeting law
Cost.
type
Oh,
things.
yeah.
And cost, but there's.
I assume Teams is their basically a equivalent of a wiki, or is that the latest version of SharePoint?
So I think it integrates to SharePoint a little bit, but it does file shares, chat, video call. So on top of Zoom, we can actually do Teams calls now too. So there's wikis, files, project planner. There's a whole slew of things.
If you don't mind me sharing my screen, I'll give you just a 30-second look at what Teams is. I use it.
Yeah, let me give you permission here. Let me make you co-host for a minute. I could do the same. Mine's not really set up very neatly right now.
I dislike Teams.
Don't share any
that's okay. Yeah,
information.
there's nothing secret here. Okay, so there's various activity things that you've done. There's chats with people. You can set up teams where people can join them or be put in them. So for example, we use this for status reports every week and things like that. There's a group calendar that can be used where you can schedule calls. Obviously there are calls. Files, it's sort of like SharePoint, but I think it uses OneDrive instead. And there are a bunch of other things that you can tie into it, add-ons and whatever. So it's pretty rich. I just find it annoying in the set of standard Microsoft ways.
Yeah. So And there is a desktop app along with the web client. So again, I'm exploring it. And if, and I believe Youth and Family is using it a lot, so maybe they're willing to do a demo of how they're using it. So again, we're paying for it, which kind of gets me into my next year's budget item that I have on my update here. I think we're still waiting for formal guidance on how to prepare our budgets, but the general message that I'm hearing and my expectation is that we're budgeting really tight next year, pretty close to what we have now. And with that, I think next year's initiatives are going to be a lot of what do we have, what are we currently paying for, and how can we use it better? How can we make our lives easier and more efficient and just take that opportunity to improve what we have? So, so that may not be a cost savings necessarily, but there'll be some progress through that. So.
Well, precisely like what you're doing with Teams and exploring functionality that we're already paying for. That's a great thing. Yeah.
So, okay. I think that's it. Well, actually, the last one I have is the new backup system is up and running. So we are backing up on-prem and to the cloud. So I'm going to be getting some more documentation on that very soon, and some trainings. And actually one more thing on here. I'm in the process, and this ties to the technology documentation, but I'm in the process of compiling a full physical inventory of all the switches with their current running firmware versions and whether or not they need to be updated, so that I can maintain that going forward, and we have a true inventory and we know what our risks are.
Yeah, it'd be good to obviously cover all hardware, all firmware, switches, firewalls, access points.
So it'll help with all other documentation anyway, knowing that inventory.
Great.
So I think that's all I have.
So,
that's a lot.
Yeah.
But
That's awesome. Great. Thanks for the update. So going to this ITS, the documentation effort, Will, I think you were going to work on some of that, doing periodic interviews or some interviews of Tom.
Well, actually, I haven't made much progress on that. I've been snowed in with other things I had to do. I will be turning to it though. I have not been taking much of any time with Tom lately. So, Tom, have you made some progress? You were mentioning you were going to be doing some things.
Yeah, I've added some to it. As I get items, I've added things, and
Where are you storing the documentation right now?
Right now it's on OneDrive, so I have it as a shared document. And this is actually something that I've talked to Chris, the part-timer, about. Especially with library documentation. He comes with institutional knowledge of how things are set up at the library. So I've asked that one of his goals be to kind of get it documented. And we had the discussion about it being, fairly crude documentation to at least start, and then kind of having the same goal of, the idea of having a competent IT person being able to pick up that document and go look at it for 5 minutes, go, okay, I know what I need to do. I have a sense of where to find things. It doesn't have to be, click next, click OK, that type of documentation. So we're kind of on the same page on that, and we'll be working together to do that as well.
Great.
Good.
Okay. Any updates on public safety? How's that going?
So we did have a little bit of an issue, which facilities is aware of, and they're taken care of. What's that?
What was that issue? What kind of issue?
I will. So the air conditioning units in the server room are hung above, so they're not on the walls; they're actually hung above from the ceiling. And something with the condenser pumps has been starting to fail. So there was one day that there was water on almost the entire floor, but it had not gotten anywhere near any of the equipment. And then the other day, another one started dripping, and it was actually dripping onto the cords of some of the equipment. So they're
What
working.
could go wrong?
Yeah, so they're working on some mitigation options for it. I know they're doing one thing I think next week, and then an additional kind of best case or worst case, I guess, protection. So facilities is aware of it. We're working closely together on it.
Are these HVAC systems under warranty, I assume?
So building just past warranty phase. So. As I understand it. So there's, so again, it's in good hands. It's going to be addressed, and we'll go from there. Other than that, I don't think there's anything else from public safety.
Just one thing about public safety. There was a big brouhaha in the last town meeting, and I think we decided that if we cut a budget, we'll actually cut the cost of heating and cooling it.
Yeah.
Has there been any impact from that on the public safety building operation?
No, they're operating as is. They're not turning the heat off at night. Although, so this year has been kind of an interesting year. And again, I'm going off topic a little bit, but because it was such a warm winter, and with COVID, buildings being occupied or unoccupied, or occupied with all the windows open and the heat going. So, it's going to be a difficult year to run data from. But I haven't heard of any impacts. And the AC in the server room, which is kind of where the only place I care about the HVAC is independent. So that's on its own thermostat. So
do we have, I mean, who gets that data from the building control systems, basically?
Facilities
Including
have it.
Facilities has it. Okay.
Yep.
And all right. Yeah. Let's find out.
Just, during the last town meeting, one of the guys that spoke, he was an expert in this area. He said that, one of the dangers you have is you don't maintain the equipment. Why are we having equipment failures in the public safety building so soon?
Good question. And it's not maintenance. So.
No, I know it's not you. Probably your kids.
No, I'm saying it's not maintenance. I don't believe it's a maintenance issue. So it's, I don't know. I can't answer that. That's outside my expertise.
Tom would have to pull out his HVAC technician, Crystal Paul.
So.
Come on, Tom. We have you doing nothing. We should have you train us as a technician too. Why not?
Yeah.
The guy I bought this house from was an HVAC engineer, so maybe I can conjure his spirit.
Okay. Cyber resiliency plan.
So I'll take this just real quick as an intro. The state offered a couple workshops on cyber incident response planning, which I attended the first. Actually, sorry, I watched the recording of the first one. I was unable to attend the first one because I think something else came up last minute on that. And then Matt and I attended the second session, which had some roundtable discussion and things like that. So really, it underscored the idea of putting a lot of focus on our cyber incident response plan, planning for a cyber incident response. And, so I've kind of I put the bug in the ear of Mark Purple and Vanessa Hale about kind of forming this team to look at what our response would be. Okay, so the first phase is coming up with a team to define the team and define the response plan. So, we have some templates to go off of, and I need to make it a priority. But really, what I got out of the session was, if we wait till 5 minutes from now, it's already too late to start our planning, and we do need to have a plan for a response. And we had the stories of the towns that the IT department was going before whomever to lobby for money for enhanced security and whatnot. And as they were asking for that money, they got hit with the ransomware. So, I, for one, don't want to be in that position of getting that phone call that we've been hit by ransomware. But if I do get that phone call, I want to have a plan in place and know what that response is going to be. So this is going to be a pretty high priority to get it in place. And this again may be an area that I'll reach out to neighboring communities to say, hey, what's your response plan? Or if you don't have one, maybe we can sit down and work through some tabletop discussions and planning together. So.
Yeah, this is one thing I'd love to work with you on as well. Not only the response plan, but also the resiliency prevention plan, right?
Yep.
And what are all the controls we have in place to mitigate or limit the blast radius when there are compromises?
Yeah.
Like what's the worst that could happen if obviously you want to make sure that any system, basically you assume compromise. You assume that passwords will be guessed.
Yep.
What's the worst case what's the worst thing that somebody who can compromise any individual employee's laptop or system, what can they infect? What can they take? Yeah.
And to that end, I did have a conversation with a consulting company. I believe they're out of Canada, but they do basically IT consulting on a lot of this type of stuff. And the initial discussion was around the staffing evaluation and whatnot. And they're full service. The thing they're pushing first ran on the order of $50,000 to $100,000 for the year type thing.
Oh yeah.
But they have this library of templates and whatnot that you can have for much less, like on the order of $3,000 to $5,000 for the year or something like that. And one of those libraries is actually in our table we talked about run books, right? And they have a template of, I think it was like 30 run books for an incident response. So, it may be something that may be worth the investment.
Looking into. Let's look into that. There's a lot of.
So that might be good use for some of the for MTC money or that type of deal. So.
Hey, Tom. Along the lines of our phishing conversation, these are companies that are valid and honest, right?
Yes.
Reputable. We're not running our phishing campaign through.
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of people lurking out there, and what an excellent way to get all the information you need to attack a town, right?
Yeah. So the phishing system is tied into our antivirus system. So, and that is Sophos. They are well known. They're well out there in the industry. I actually know someone who worked for the company for a while. So, that one I have no problems with. If we started getting into other areas, definitely there's a vetting process that we have to go through.
So you're vetting these vendors, right?
Yeah. Before we engage and give them any kind of information, there's definitely some vetting going on. But a company that might give us some templates, well, if we can download the template and use it, there's levels of risk, right? And that's another discussion I want to have another day, is brainstorming what risks are out there and really just come out with a list. And I'm sure we're going to be very scared by that list, but we need to know what they are, and we can say, okay, we've had this handled this way,
So we definitely need to have both. We need to have an understanding what the threats are based on a variety of threat models against each system and the people and people and processes, etc. We also need to have what's called a risk register, so known risks based on our current system or deficiency in our controls. So we should be, even if it's a poor man's risk register, Excel doc to start with. Right. We don't need a necessarily official system, but we definitely should lay out all of those on the table, so we're aware of the risks associated with each of the systems.
And that I think needs to range everywhere from, a physical building is destroyed by fire or whatever to, the end user clicked on that email. There's
Yeah. Yeah. The
such a
run
wide
books
range.
should
So
sort of cover everything in between that, each one of those and everything.
essentially
in between.
everything we can think of, and as we think of more or, more news comes out, we add to it and figure out how we're addressing that concern.
Yeah.
So,
There also should be periodic testing of
Yes.
those
Yep.
responses. Yeah.
There to have been a whole new raft of ransomware attacks just over the past week. There's a school system, I think it was in Nevada, where they basically said we're not paying, and they just published all of the data.
Yeah.
And
So,
two or three others that I read about one of the healthcare systems had.
yes, a major healthcare system just got hit. And so hospitals were going to paper, right as schools were getting back, there was I don't remember which city or town it was, but in Connecticut had to delay their reopening of schools by, 3 or 4 days because they were hit by ransomware. So it's the threat is out there. It is real. And, we need to be prepared, really.
I'll schedule some time with you, Tom.
Yeah,
let's dig into this. I'd love to put that together quickly. And basically, we should also, the risks. All of our priorities should be based on the relative level of risk. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of risks, right?
Right.
The question is, what are our biggest risks? And we should prioritize what we're working on based on the highest risks, etc.
Yeah. And I mean, some of those risks we may have mitigated in some fashion, and it may not be perfect, but at least there's some mitigation to
There's
it.
something there.
And we can say, okay, we're going to pass by that one for right now. So,
yeah, it's good. Okay, great. All right, MTC processes. I don't think we have anything for today. I'm sort of looking to so we're down a committee member. Started reaching out to various people in town on LinkedIn to see, basically, who I know live in the town, who are know into technology, and to see if they'd be interested in applying.
One question on that. We're authorized for 5 members, right?
that's correct.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And I believe that I have heard at one time that even though we only have, let's say, we have 4, but let's say we only had 3, right?
Quorum is 3.
Quorum is 3.
Well, the quorum is 3, but I believe that for us to pass a motion, it also requires 3 votes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, no. I think if you have a quorum, it's just a majority of the quorum. I think, but I'm not. That'd be something. It'd be an interesting wrinkle, but I can't imagine that you could really hold a meeting without being able to vote on things. But that's an aside. So that's a clarifier that clerk may be able to answer.
Ask the clerk. Yeah.
Okay.
5G wireless. I don't have any updates on that.
What happened to our flagpole? and is our flagpole back? Or what happened to it?
I'll be honest with you. I was just down there yesterday, and I didn't look at it. Most days now that I drive into town, I'm paying more attention to where I can drive to get into the building than the flagpole. So I know Sam's in the audience. I don't know if he would if you would like to have him speak to where that's at. He probably has much more knowledge.
That would be
than I
great
do.
if Sam wouldn't mind.
Well, it seems like the nightmares we talked about a year ago are now coming true.
Would you like a quick update?
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
I'm frequently reminded that I can speak officially for nobody. So my personal independent view of this. It is my understanding that Crown Castle got a building permit to make a minor modification to the pole, to add some antenna capacity. And as this was happening, the facilities and the building inspector noticed that there was a large growth on the top of the pole that did not match the permit application or the drawings or photos that were submitted with the application. And they ordered the work be stopped immediately, which it was, but only after the pole was significantly altered near the top, so it can no longer serve as a flagpole. You can't run a flag up there now. And so many people, particularly veterans organizations, were very upset, appropriately, because they couldn't have a flag up there for Memorial Day, and now it looks like we're not going to have it done for Veterans Day either. And the Crown, Crown Castle is the I guess, administrator of that process. They lease space, as I understand it, a capacity in the tower to other carriers, but they breached the contract with us. Their contract expires today, as a matter of fact, for that service. Our town council has been in touch with their legal people, ordering them to put it back to its original condition immediately. And they continue to say that they're willing to do that, but it's going to take a fair amount of time to get it done. So we are now debating with them exactly how fast that can happen. And the intent is, the instruction from the selectmen was to restore the pole to its original function and look. And that means probably that we will not lease the antenna capacity in there to anybody going forward, which costs us. We get about, I think it was $30,000 a year, something like that, lease payments, which is unfortunate. On the other hand, the vote of the selectmen was that the pole was more important than the money in that particular case. So we are working as quickly as we can to get the pole restored. And frustratingly, Crown Castle seems to be dragging their feet on that, and not clear what we can do about it.
Sam, a year ago when we were talking about 5G, I read the FCC orders on or rulings about 5G. And what scared the crap out of me was that it seemed like the FCC was taking this position that if a telecom company came in and wanted to put 5G somewhere and you didn't want to let them do it, basically they could go to a judge, and the judge would be told that the town would have to prove that they weren't guilty, or that of trying to gouge the poor telecom company, and that also the FCC ruling seemed to imply that they could override a city-state law if they wanted to do this. And I'm not joking. I mean, this is something that they.
My understanding too. Okay. Well, as a matter of fact, we have not run into that issue with this particular flagpole, but I also have been following some of that, and I'm alarmed that it certainly sounds like there's great opportunity for carriers to come in and use those regulations to basically do what they want to do.
So, well, as you know, Sam, Charter is now
yes.
Taking advantage of the fair market value with regards to cable. It just seems like the nightmares are beginning to come true.
Potentially, but near term, it sounds like we will be able to get the pole restored to its prior glory, and just not as fast as anybody's going to like. And there may be some other ways we can expedite that. Again, town council is working on escalating the legal chest thumping here, and we'll see what happens.
I'm shocked that you're saying it's going to take more than 6 weeks to get this restored.
Crown Castle's original response was 9 months.
What?
I'm serious. Very, very alarming and irritating. But so that was clearly unacceptable, and we're trying to come up with a much more expedited schedule.
Good luck.
We're going to need it, I'm afraid. Crown Castle happens to be my corporate vendor for internet service, and I found them to be extraordinarily difficult on that level, as to even for paying customers. So it is interesting business practice from a lot of these guys, apparently.
Sam, if we're losing money because of Crown Castle, can we recover that from them?
That discussion has happened. Again, they got a lot bigger legal department than we do. And so the question is, you can sue for damages, but that is often a long and costly course. I think personally, I'd be happy to get the flagpole restored now quickly if we can get that done. But
yeah, I think the money that Mr. Cybers was referring to is the lease payment
Right.
per year that
Per year.
we will no longer have anyone leasing that pole.
That they were paying us, and now
Right.
because we're not letting them do anything they want with the pole, they're going to discontinue that contract.
Yeah,
So we no longer get that revenue.
exactly.
So
Are
Disappointing.
there, okay,
So
Thank you.
that's the bad news, but we continue to push. So
Thank you, Sam, for that update.
One other note about 5G, just for next month, is that Ms. Davis actually sometime in the last hour sent out an email with something that she'd like on the agenda for next month related to 5G.
Sounds good. Yeah, I saw that. A couple of links we should read over and then cover in our meeting next month. Great. Okay. Strategic technology plan. I know that we're sort of mid-cycle here. We're not going to have a town meeting to report to. We weren't able to report to the town meeting this last year, but we should at least prep a plan. So that's our next spring town meeting. Hopefully it'll happen. We can be prepared to present some technology plan. I don't have any specific updates today, but I would like to take the strategy we've had before. Let's take a look again at each of the key areas, the respective metrics, and identify where we are with respect to those metrics. We can discuss that in a future meeting.
Although
Matt,
a big piece of that process was to do some surveys to actually get some data. And I don't think we've done.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet. Yeah, yes. Basically, identify what are the metrics, and the metrics are driven a lot by the surveys, especially like the town, both employee satisfaction and issues, as well as the citizen satisfaction with existing technology and departments, etc. So, which leads us to the technology surveys. I'm still not ready. I was really hoping to be ready with our Survey Monkey. We've started it. I've started creating the Survey Monkey and wanted to share it with you today, but I'm not ready to share that by tonight's meeting. Basically, an example of what the survey would look like. We still do have all these other departments that are interested in participating with us jointly and basically submitting survey questions so we can have a joint, hopefully sort of a town-wide periodic survey to the citizens. So, but yeah, I'm not prepared to share that yet tonight.
Matt, I'm being on the master planning committee. I so far I haven't really seen much of a role for a technology master plan. It seems to me that any technology planning would be done in response to what else the master plan contained, and that it would be done, more tactically than strategically. Am I correct in that, or is there something that we should be inserting into the master plan from a technology viewpoint?
That is a great question. I know Sam is also part of that committee, helping somewhat lead it. Where possible, it would be good to. I think it would be nice to insert, but where possible or where it makes sense to insert a townwide technology. So, for example, we've talked. I know. So before you were on the master plan committee, I was on it, and we were discussing, things that would be how to move the needle, how to attract people, what is the infrastructure like. So let's think about, let's add that to our next month's discussion around things are asked for the master plan committee. We don't have it on the agenda tonight, but what are the things we'd like to insert about digital infrastructure potentially?
Yeah, I think just having a representative from the technology community is good, because it's been my experience in the past, not necessarily in Southborough, but that someone has this great plan to do something, and then at the 11th hour they say, oh, well, we need X, Y, and Z from technology, right? So it's good to at least be hearing the discussions and bringing that back. And providing the update of what might have impact on technology. That's my 2 cents on it.
My opinion is, after listening, to several of these meetings, that whereas there may be a clarity in what we'd like to get to in 10 years, I think there's a lot of fog between here and there, and unfortunately, if you're trying to plan technology, you need some more certainty as to where they're going, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when.
I'm going to
And when.
I'm going to recognize Mr. Stivers. He has his hand up.
Great power to mute me. There are a lot of people who'd like to be able to do that. Starting with my family. I can't resist on the master plan thing. It's great to have Will involved in that now. And I would encourage you to actually try to get some of these things into that process, because for me, at least, part of the value of this is to begin to socialize some longer term ideas about how we ought to be thinking, for example. And things that occur to me are some sort of a town-wide electronic communication network that can connect people, either electronic message-wise, video-wise, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that has been discussed is using the schools as a sort of focal management point, if you will, for lifelong learning, and to think about expanding school programs into pre-K and daycare kind of things on the younger end, and lifelong learning on the senior end, and have individual education plans that folks can plug into and get access to educational resources, both in town as well as out of town, internationally, wherever. In the future. And so if you've got a world where you've got some large pipes into people's homes to carry that kind of content going forward, to me, that's a huge opportunity for technology to not only inform people, but bring people together, reinforce sense of community electronically in ways that are, as we find these days, challenging to do physically. So thinking about those kind of things, getting some of those things on the radar screen, they're what I think of as big ideas that, you're exactly right, is, well, very foggy today. But I think it's useful to get those kind of things out there, written down, so they've got a placeholder, at least, as people think about these things going forward. And then that maybe stimulates others to say, wow, I can use that structure to hook in to do some of these other things that we're trying to accomplish here. And I guess I see the technology infrastructure as a key sort of building block for a lot of things that we might want to do going forward. So it's, to me, not at all inappropriate to conceptualize about some of those things and write a little bit of it, get it in the draft of the plan that we're working to do over the next month or two here, at the very least as a placeholder, without maybe huge flesh around it, but gets people used to the idea. So I would strongly encourage you to come up with something there to get in there and at least reserve a position to keep it discussed.
Sam, I agree with what you're saying in spirit. I would just make one comment, which would be, I would see that instead of building technology or implementing technology for those purposes, I think the real approach would be to facilitate people getting access to them. And what I mean by that is that there's like so many different institutions now that are, have courses online, free courses, all of that, that it's, there's like an embarrassment of riches there. And maybe it's more of a facilitation issue or an educational issue, so helping people get out there and actually begin using it.
Yep. I didn't articulate that well. I think you're exactly right. And that I think that we need to have, I think, a vision of how that works. And I wasn't trying to suggest that we should build it ourselves, but it would be, again, I think, useful if we found something like, Microsoft XYZ or whatever it was that did a lot of that stuff. So finding those mechanisms and supporting them as a town and trying to utilize them based on somebody else's investment, but at least have the structure and the vision so we can drive that, as opposed to having it happen sort of randomly out there, I think creates great opportunity for us. So thanks, Will. That was inarticulate of me, but that was what I was trying to get at in terms of a vision that says, here's how it can work. And the good news is we probably don't have to build it all ourselves, but we can plan it and organize it
And facilitate.
create
Yeah.
the vision and facilitate and get the value out of it without spending billions of dollars to do it. So
Yeah.
that's the vision that I'm trying to get on paper here, at least in several areas, including technology.
Okay.
Well,
Great.
I can say from my own experience, Sam, my brother has vision issues as well as I do, and he's down in North Carolina, and he went to Duke, and he's kind of hooked up with a couple things that came out of Duke. One is like a course, online courses, which I'm actually taking with him right now, and another is like an online book club that's actually become quite extensive. And you know, it's interesting. All of that was there. It's been there for some time. You know, it's the fact that my brother got me involved in it. It was really sort of the key thing. So he facilitated me in terms of actually discovering this and getting going on it.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
something we can do as a town. All right, we're over time, so let's go ahead and move on. So yeah, let's definitely brainstorm over the next month, especially feed things through Will, these ideas, and so he can feed it back to the master plan committee. So I think so. Yeah, we'll chat about surveys next month. Nothing else on the agenda tonight. Let's quickly look at our calendars, if that's okay, and plan for our next meeting before we recess.
Let me pull up the meetings.
So our current, normally we've said the third Wednesday of every month, and I'm seeing that's the 21st of October, which may be at the same time as a master plan committee meeting. Is that?
21st of October is jam-packed. Yeah, it's currently jam-packed. We have advisory followed by master plan and ZBA work meeting that day.
Okay.
So if we can move to a different time, then it might be okay. But
Yeah, the master plan is at 7:30.
yeah,
And maybe
ZBA,
earlier today if we could.
What's your schedule like? I could do like 5:30 to 7:30. I have a meeting
That would
till
be
5:30.
That would be fine with me.
So we can run up until 7 only that night because ZBA starts at 7.
Hey, Tom, just one issue here is,
Yep.
If we're going to continue these Zoom meetings, are you going to try and offload more of this to people like Ryan or other people?
Yeah, so I was remiss to mention that at the beginning that Tim Davis is actually one of the people that is helping to run meetings. You probably saw him today in your cables committee meeting. So he's doing that. We've had some discussion about offloading it to a committee member, right? That's actually just on the committee. But I have some concerns about consistency on how meetings are run. It's not a huge involvement. Really, I know for myself, I'll start a meeting, I'll make sure it gets recording, and then I'll go off and either sit here and do other work if it's a committee that isn't likely to need my input for anything, or sometimes I'll leave the room and just leave the sound on so I can hear it. So it's not like I'm literally sitting here for 2 hours for a meeting in most cases, unless there's something that I need to be involved in. So with that said, yes, there's definitely more people that are doing it, but to put it on volunteers I'm still having a little bit of concern, and that's nothing to do with the individual volunteers. It's more to do with the way that I've seen other meetings in other communities actually run. So it's just trying to get the balance.
Maybe you could give some thought, obviously, Tom, to see if there's a minimum checklist. What is the clear procedure that needs to be followed?
Yeah, and we have that, but there is the piece of it is a single password that's used on the account, and so sharing that with more people just opens up more possibility for something to go
You
awry.
can,
So
you can add alternate hosts. And
yeah,
maybe
but I
not on
think
our
they still
plan,
have
but
to be a paid person, so a paid
okay,
account. So
okay.
there's definitely stuff to look at for it. So it's we're going to continue to evaluate.
Okay. All right. Going back to that week, what is everybody's schedule like on, say, the Tuesday instead of the Wednesday, like the 20th? Or Tuesday's bad?
That one works for me.
I'm sorry, guy. What time would you be thinking of on the 20th?
I think about the 7 to 9.
That would be fine with me.
That is fine with me unless I have to, if I have any business in front of the selectmen, but if that's the case, I can bounce between meetings. So
Okay. So I will shift at least the October block for MTC meeting then, and I'll also send, which selectmen are using the remote participation? Or
yeah,
did we
remote
bump up?
one.
Oh,
So
did we
just,
bump both of our plans to allow for remote participation now? Or
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So
Great.
so you'll just end up selecting remote meeting 2, I believe.
Okay.
And then
I'll,
my last thought for the night is, again, if you guys have anything that you want to discuss with me between meetings, just reach out. We can schedule some time. Sometimes I have time that day, other times I have to push you off by a few days, but reach out, please.
Sounds good. We'll do. Yeah, I'll definitely reach out on some of the security stuff and the training,
Okay.
Tom.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Let's go ahead and any final things before we adjourned? All right. If not, we have a motion to adjourn.
I move it.
Okay. Okay. Roll call to adjourn. William.
Yes.
What are people going to say if we don't roll call?
Well,
Larry.
I was just laughing because if we need 3 votes to do anything, then if anybody objects, we wouldn't be able to adjourn.
It's kind of silly.
Until I end the meeting
Actually,
anyway.
if I leave the meeting now, you guys are going to be stuck here. So
Actually, technically speaking, if one person left and we fell below quorum, we would have to adjourn for lack of quorum anyway. So.
Oh, okay. So
That's a good point. Good point.
I vote yes.
okay. Likewise, I vote yes.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
Likewise. We'll see you. Bye.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.